Good evening and welcome to the Greek Archaeological Committee's 69th lecture. My name is Zeta Theodoropoulou Polychroniadis, Chair of the committee and your host this evening. I thank you all for joining us. Let me please mention some protocols about this evening's session. Other than panelists, all cameras and microphones will be off by default. There will be no discussion after the lecture, but you may use the chat button to send your questions. Please add your email too, so that the speaker can respond directly to you by email. This evening, we are delighted to welcome Dr. George Koutsouflakis, Assistant Professor in Maritime Archaeology at the University of Thessaly and a qualified diver. The title of his lecture is The Excavation of a Late Roman Shipwreck in the Archipelago of Phournoi, Eastern Aegean, Issues of Dating and Origin of the Cargo. The Greek Archaeological Committee UK, a British registered charity, was founded in London 39 years ago by the late Mati Egon Xilas and has been offering annually to Greek and Greek Cypriot students scholarships for postgraduate studies in archaeology at leading UK universities. These scholarships are made possible thanks to donations generously made by Stamatia and Nick Komninos, Matis Children, the A.G. Leventis Foundation, and other donors, but also through the annual subscriptions of our devoted members. Our 80 scholars, most of who are leading academics in their field, now hold prestigious posts in the UK, in Greece, elsewhere in Europe, and in the US, and in turn they promote the study of the Hellenic cultural heritage through their work. GACUK also aims to present the latest important archaeological discoveries in Greece and Cyprus, in the UK, and beyond, with 2 annual lectures. In spite of the many challenges, including the meteoric increase of fees, GACUK has managed to achieve its aims and intends to continue to do so. We're very proud to announce that in 2026, GACUK will be celebrating 40 years since its foundation, so please stay tuned for our 40th anniversary celebrations. As we safeguard GACUK's legacy, we hope you will join us in our mission by either becoming a member of our charity or make a one-time donation, which will go towards our scholarship fund. Every donation makes a difference. Please visit our website for membership and donation. And now back to our speaker. Dr. George Koutsouflakis holds a first degree in archaeology and art history, a postgraduate degree specializing in prehistoric archaeology, and a PhD from the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens. His doctoral dissertation, titled Navigation and Commercial Transportation in the South Euboean Gulf from the 6th century BC to the 14th century AD, was based on an extensive underwater archaeological survey conducted in the South Euboean Gulf between 2006 and 2013. From 1993 to 2005, he worked as a contract archaeologist for the amphorae of underwater antiquities and various other amphorae of the Cyclades, and in addition, he participated in the underwater archaeological survey in Alexandria, Egypt. From 2004 to 2021, he worked for the Archaeological Service in the amphorae of underwater antiquities, focusing on the investigation, documentation, and publication of ancient and medieval shipwrecks. His work added over 100 new shipwreck sites to Greece's national inventory of shipwrecks. Since 2021, Dr. Koutsouflakis has been assistant professor of maritime archaeology at the University of Thessaly. An experienced diver with certifications from the International Association of Nitrox and Technical Divers, he has accumulated over 1,500 hours of diving experience in support of underwater archaeological research. So let us give him the floor and dive with him into the depths of the Eastern Aegean in the Phournoi Archipelago, where he will guide us to shipwreck number 15, one of 50, laying in the same area. Dr. Koutsouflakis.
Okay, a few years ago, I had the privilege of being invited in Oxford to deliver a lecture on the underwater archaeological research conducted by my team in the Phournoi Archipelago. To my astonishment, the lecture was met with considerable success, an outcome I mention not to boast, but to highlight the relative obscurity of Phournoi. This cluster of islands in the Eastern Aegean is scarcely known to the broader public, having never been the site of major historical events. In ancient time, Kourse is barely attested in the writings of Greek and Roman authors. Since the initial presentation, our research has increasingly focused in the excavation of a late Roman shipwreck characterized by a particularly intricate assemblage of amphorae. Although still in its early stages, the project raises compelling and at times intellectually daunting questions that not only shape the structure of our inquiry, but also challenge us to produce rigorous academic interpretations. As I am sure of how many of you attended this earlier lecture, I will begin by briefly reviewing the background of our research before delving into the principal subject of today's presentation. The Phournoi Archipelago is located several nautical miles south of the large Eastern Aegean islands of Samos and Ikaria. Comprising 20 islands and islets within a total area of approximately 70 square miles, Phournoi has never supported settlements larger than small villages. Today, only the two largest islands, the Phournoi Island and the Thymena Island, are inhabited with a combined population of around 1,100 inhabitants distributed among 6 villages and settlements. Despite the profound socioeconomic transformation brought by tourism over the last 3 decades, the rhythm of life in Phournoi remains closely tied to the sea. The archipelago retains 350 professional fishing licenses, the highest per capita rate in Greece. Maritime communications are frequently disrupted due to adverse weather conditions, often isolating the islands for extended periods. In September 2015, we launched an ambitious research program, a collaborative initiative between the Hellenic Amphorae of Underwater Antiquities and the Institution RPM Nautical Foundation, aimed at surveying, documenting, and studying all ancient, medieval, and modern shipwrecks in the marine area surrounding Phournoi. The initial team was small, our equipment rudimentary, and the budget modest. While there had been anecdotal evidence of shipwrecks in the area, mainly from Kalymnian sponge divers, our discoveries in that first campaign exceeded all expectations. By the end of September 2015, we had recorded 22 shipwrecks. The press release issued by the Ministry of Culture upon our return in Athens thrust the previously unknown islands of Phournoi into the global spotlight, prematurely branding them as the shipwreck capital of the world. This media-driven myth persists, often obscuring the scientific realities of our work. Recognizing the need to meet the growing demands of the project, we expanded our team and invested in infrastructure and technical resources. The survey continued through 2018 with 23 shipwrecks added during the 2016 campaign. In the years 2017 and 18, an additional 13 wrecks discovered. At present, we have systematically surveyed approximately the 85% of the coastal zone at depths ranging from 10 up to 50 meters. Deeper zones remain unexplored though a significant partnership established in 2024 enabled the identification of a Byzantine shipwreck at a depth of 75 meters. In addition to shipwrecks, our surveys have documented numerous concentrations of pottery, likely the result of cargo jettisoning, and hundreds of individual artifacts, chiefly amphorae, tableware, and cooking vessels. Noteworthy among these are a cache of 80 Roman lamps discovered on Thymena, dating in the 2nd century AD and bearing inscriptions from the northern Peloponnesian workshops. So we can still read in the bases of the lamps the names of the lamp makers Lucius, Luciu, and Octavius, Octaviu. Dozens of ancient and medieval anchors have also been recovered and catalogued, offering a tangible evidence of maritime activity in antiquity. Our policy has always been to limit artifact recovery to representative items in order to preserve the contextual integrity of each shipwreck as an archaeological monument. From the spatial perspective, the distribution of shipwrecks around the archipelago is notably uneven. So we can see that we have high concentration of shipwrecks towards the eastern part of the Phournoi Island, especially in the strait that is separating the eastern part of Phournoi with the island of Agios Minas. In this area, we had the most dense concentration of shipwrecks, and I believe almost half of the shipwrecks we located in shipwrecks are in this area. We have to mention also that we have good concentration of shipwrecks also in the island of Thymena. And now if we see the chronological distribution of the Phournoi shipwrecks, the earliest shipwrecks that have been discovered so far are dated in the archaic period. Let's say the oldest one, it's in the middle 6th century. Then we have considerably low numbers of classical shipwrecks, and from the Hellenistic period and on, the number of shipwrecks start to rise. Also in Roman, and we have, let's say, the peak of navigation through the Phournoi Channel during the late Roman period, between the 4th and the 7th century AD. And then in the Byzantine, post-Byzantine, numbers of shipwrecks are again reducing. Now, here in the down right part of the screen, there is a statistic analysis of the Mediterranean shipwreck published by Anthony Parker back in 1992 in his most prolific work about the Mediterranean shipwreck. So we see that these two tables show some significant difference. So if we consider the general Mediterranean data, we see that the highest number of shipwrecks occurs between, the 100 BC and 100 AD. So this is the peak in Mediterranean number. In Phournoi instead, we have the highest peak in the number of numbers during the late Roman period. In 2019, we published the preliminary results of the 2015-2018 survey in a Greek language volume that also examined terrestrial antiquities of the archipelago. That book was officially presented by the Minister of Culture, Mrs. Lina Mendoni, in Phournoi, and an English translation is forthcoming. Equally important was the establishment in 2018 of the Corsair Institute for Historical and Archaeological Research based in Phournoi. Its mission is to provide logistical and financial support for archaeological work in the area, and provides also the spaces needed to store all the equipment, to have common meetings there and a working place for at least 6 or 7 individuals. While I do not intend now to discuss, the total number of 58 shipwrecks in detail, a selection deserves a brief mention for the exceptional significance. So let's start from the earliest shipwreck we discovered so far. It's in the eastern promontory of Phournoi, the Asproskavos Cape. It's shipwreck number 13, dated somewhere in the middle of the 6th century BC, with a cargo that combined basically amphoras from Samos. It's the upper amphora, and also a second type of amphora that we haven't defined an origin yet, but we are confident that comes also from a Greek city of the Eastern Aegean. It's one unique of this kind of shipwrecks. Usually we find those kinds of amphora not in the Aegean, but in the Samian or Milesian colonies far away from the Greek archipelago. Equally important, if we step to the overnext period of the Hellenistic period, we found the first composite cargoes. So this is shipwreck number 27. It's located again in Agios Minas in Kambi, in the depth, in the comfortable depth between 28 and 38 meters, and it combines amphoras from Rhodes, Knidos, and Kos. So the main wine-producing cities of that era in the Aegean. But it has also a supplementary cargo of Greco-Italic amphoras that originate probably from a Greek area city of the Graecia Magna. But in the same period also, we have also uniformal cargoes of amphoras. And I would say that in the 3rd and 2nd century BC, and perhaps also towards the first half of the 1st century BC, Koan amphoras dominate most Hellenistic cargoes. It's Koan amphoras and also the Roman imitations, the Dressel II, Dressel III, and Dressel IV amphoras. So this shipwreck here, the shipwreck number 13, is a characteristic example in Agios Minas. It's a huge concentration of intact amphoras found in a depth zone between 37 and 48 meters, dated around 150 to 100 BC. Now to continue with some of the most exotic cargoes we found in Phournoi. This is shipwreck number 45. It's in Thymena, in the north side of Thymena, in the Vathilakas Bay. So, and the inconvenient depth of between 57 and 67 meters. So it's the deepest shipwreck we have investigated so far in Phournoi, with a personal presence in the site. What makes it very, very interesting is that it's preserved in a very good condition because, of course, because it's in the deep water, and that it has a composite cargo containing two types of North African amphorae, the Africana 3 type and the Africana 2 type, and both are originating from Africa Proconsularis, the Roman province of North Africa, the area of modern Tunisia, and also another type which is named Almagro 51C that originates from Spain. And last but not least, it's shipwreck number 12. Now, this shipwreck and the previous one are laying in this almost in the same area, and they are separated just by 20 or 30 meters. So they sunk exactly in the same spot. This is a very interesting cargo, but it's a very extended shipwreck, extended from the depth of 18 meters up to 60 meters, and it has a unique cargo of amphoras, most of them originating from several cities of the Black Sea. So this is not the only shipwreck with such a cargo we have found so far in Phournoi, because a similar cargo carries also the shipwreck we started excavating in 2021. So during 2016, excuse me, in 2021, the research team was presented with the rare and strategically advantageous opportunity to evaluate a total of 58 documented shipwrecks within the Phournoi Archipelago, with the objective of selecting a single site for systematic and long-term excavation. This decision held critical importance as it would commit the team's resources and define the trajectory of the research in the region for the foreseeable future. The selecting criteria required a balance between archaeological potential, namely preservation state and capacity to yield insights into unresolved historical questions, but also practical considerations such as accessibility within the diving limits of the team. Among the candidates, shipwreck number 15 on the eastern coast of Phournoi, near the maritime corridor separating the island of Phournoi from Agios Minas, emerged as a particularly promising site. First documented during the inaugural season of research, this wreck lies off the promontory of Asproskavos within the highly concentrated cluster of 7 shipwrecks, each separated by only a few dozen meters. So this is the coastline as remote as it can be. And here are the 7 shipwrecks. This is the position of the archaic shipwreck I presented just 2 minutes ago. This is the position of shipwreck number 15. Those are other shipwrecks in the area. Now, all this cluster of shipwrecks with the archaic shipwreck extended is dating towards the late Roman period. Shipwreck number 15 is among the least disturbed of those identified thus far. It rests on a steeply sloping sandy seabed, ranging from 42 to 50 meters in depth. The site's topography appears to have facilitated a relatively undisturbed descent, as the ship settled in such a way that the coherence of its cargo was largely preserved. The uppermost visible layer of the deposit includes approximately 120 amphoras, many of which are in intact condition. The assemblage reflects a heterogeneous cargo consisting of at least 4 distinct amphora types. Notably, many amphorae are aligned in parallel and share a common orientation, suggesting that the hull and the contents came to rest on the seafloor as a single unit. Now, the seabed itself is characterized by a 45-degree incline, flanked on the shallower side by rocky projections, the ones you can see here, and an expansive sandy slope. It is hypothesized that the ship tilted eastward upon sinking, leading to some displacement of the cargo down the slope. A small concentration of broken amphorae was identified 5 meters deep on the adjacent shoreline, presumably marking the point of initial impact with the coast. The dominant amphora present is Zist 72, named after the typology of Vosporian amphoras created by Irene Zist back in the 60s. It is characterized by voluminous body and an estimated capacity exceeding the 70 liters. This amphora form is primarily documented in the northern and northwestern littoral of the Black Sea, particularly in Crimea and the Sea of Azov. Zist 72 amphora are infrequently encountered outside these regions, with only fragmentary examples previously identified in sites such as Athens, Knossos, and Argos. Based on archaeological parallels from salting cisterns in Greek colonies such as Myrmekion and Pantikapeon in the Crimea area, it is hypothesized that these containers were used to transport salsamentum. A second most represented type is Selov type E amphora, or Zist 104, if we use the typology of Irene Zist, which current evidence attributes to the production centers along the southern Black Sea coast, likely in the vicinity of Heracleia Pontica. 2 additional amphora types are present in limited numbers. One exhibits morphological features similar to the northern Pontic forms and may represent a regional variant of Zist 72, although it is not classified in existing amphora topologies and classifications. It's often referred as Chersonesian type of amphora. The final amphora type corresponds also to Kapiten II, a form widely distributed across the Roman world, which reported finds ranging from Britain to Mesopotamia and from North Africa to Scandinavia. While the precise manufacturing origin of Kapitan II remains undetermined, a growing body of scholarship suggests an Aegean provenance, with the island of Chios being a strong candidate as a production center. It is important to acknowledge that the traditional chronology of these amphora types is largely based on excavation data from the mid-12th century Crimean context and consequently warrants some revision. While there is a scholarly consensus regarding their peak production period, the outer chronological limits remain debated. Using conservative dating estimates and studying the overlapping ranges of the amphora types present, an initial date for shipwreck 15 has been proposed within the late 3rd century to early 4th century AD. This preliminary dating represented at 2017 conference in Constanța, Romania, did not yet incorporate data from tablewares, which were at the time neither recovered nor analyzed. In this conference, I received also some feedback from scholars of Eastern Europe regarding the proposed date of the shipwreck. There were several scholars that suggested that I should stay closer to a date in the middle 3rd century, based basically by the presence of Zist 104 type in the stratigraphy of Agora. So there were scholars that Andrei Ope that supported this view, but there were also scholars that they debated for a later date of the shipwreck, saying that it might well go into the 5th century AD. Although the Black Sea has historically been viewed as a peripheral zone in relation to the Mediterranean's core economic networks, a perspective influenced by modern geopolitical divisions, particularly during the Cold War, recent archaeological studies has increasingly recognized the region's vital role in long-distance maritime trade. Amphora studies, in particular, have emerged as a critical tool for assessing the dynamics of commerce between the Black Sea and the broader Mediterranean. Despite substantial inflows of Mediterranean amphorae in the Black Sea, the reverse flow Pontic amphorae in the Aegean context are remarkably sparse. Out of over 240 shipwrecks identified in the Aegean to date, only 3 have yielded cargoes composed of Black Sea amphorae, all located at Phournoi. The proximity of these wrecks to one another suggests the existence of a well-established trade corridors, if not formally organized maritime itinerary linking the Eastern Aegean islands and the Anatolian coast with southern destination in the Eastern Mediterranean. While shipwreck 15 presented considerable scholarly promise, the decision to undertake a systematic excavation also entailed substantial logistical and technical challenge. If I have to be precise in a logistical term, organizing an excavation in that particular site is a logistical nightmare. The wreck is located in an exceptionally remote and topographically difficult area situated on a steep underwater slope off the eastern coast of Phournoi without any road access. The nearest inhabited settlement is Kamari, approximately 2 nautical miles to the south. The site is further exposed to prevailing northerly winds, which frequently impact the region with significant force. This meteorological vulnerability may partially explain the unusual high density of shipwreck in the areas, 12 in total within close proximity, indicating that this location posed navigational hazards in antiquity as well. Given these constraints, the excavation required a flotilla of support vessels, including a primary operation ship outfit and with diving and mechanical equipment, supplemented by several small boats to transport personnel and maintain continuous communication with the base at Kamari. Early attempts to establish even a temporary operational base on the adjacent rocky coastline were unsuccessful. The necessity of chartering this maritime infrastructure during each excavation campaign imposed a significant financial burden, consuming a substantial portion of the annual research budget. However, this logistical framework was indispensable for the continuation of the project. So in the next photographs, you can see us operating at the site. We changed many supporting vessels in the last 3 years. We were able to purchase a vessel last year, but it's not of the site that can really cover the full needs of this excavation. The depth of the wreck site, ranging between 42 and 50 meters, imposes additional technical restrictions. Divers are limited to approximately 20 minutes of active work time per descent, with a requisite of 30 minutes decompression period using two-stage oxygen-enriched breathing mixtures. These conditions place stringent demands on personnel, necessitating advanced diving qualifications and safety protocols. Since 2022, the excavation of Shipwreck 15 has been officially undertaken by the University of Thessaly in cooperation with the effort Underwater Antiquities, where I served in the university as professor of underwater archaeology. Although the university maintains several terrestrial excavation projects and possesses previous experience with shallow water investigations, specifically a decade-long project in the ancient harbor of Kythnos, the high-risk open sea environment at Phournoi represents a markedly different operational context. Despite the burden of responsibility, this undertaking has been viewed as both a professional and pedagogical imperative. Over the past 3 years, substantial time and resources have been invested in training and certifying students to meet the rigorous safety and technical standards required for the deep water excavation. This commitment had led to a thorough revision of our established diving protocols. Innovations included the deployment of live feed surveillance cameras on the seabed and the transportation of a hyperbaric decompression chamber to Phournoi, ensuring immediate treatment options in the event of a diving emergency. Each field in Phournoi spans approximately 4 weeks, with the initial 3 to 4 days dedicated to logistical preparation. This includes mooring the primary support vessel directly above the wreck site, assembling and deploying the airlifts, custom excavation tools pre-assembled on land, and testing all essential systems at operational depths. The first trial excavation on Shipwreck number 15 began in 2021, focusing on the shallower western perimeter of the site. So we started excavating in this area that you see here, which is the shallow area of the wreck, the western side, in the depth of the zone around 42 meters. This zone is giving us some more minutes of bottom time during the dives. And also we escape easier the symptoms of nitrogen narcosis. This area was selected to evaluate the extent to which the cargo extended beneath the overlying sediment layers. From the outset, however, it became evident that excavation efforts were being severely hampered by unstable sand deposits. Loose material from the upper strata continually slid into the excavation trench, occasionally manifesting as underwater sand avalanches. A temporary containment strategy involving the curtain geotextile fabric, anchored with strakes, proved ineffective against the volume and the force of the sediment displacement. Rather than exposing archaeological features, initial efforts resulted in further burial of the wreck. So there is no way to explain you what the situation is like in those circumstances. So I chose some video from the surveillance camera to gain a general idea of this situation. Well, this happened a lot of times during the 2021 and 2022 campaign. So what we see is sand sliding down from the upper levels and creating this avalanche of sand that expands and gets larger and larger and larger. And During the 2 first years of the excavation, this was happening 2 or 3 times a day, and all operations had to be stopped, and we had to wait after that a considerable time, in the surface till the sun sets down again, and we have a decent visibility in the site. We understood very fast that in order to continue the excavation, we had to prioritize the abstraction of sediments in this slope here. So we used two airlifts. The one was excavating in the trenches that we opened in the western side, the shallow side of the shipwreck. So you can see the amphora pile that it starts here and it extends further down. And the second airlift was working in the 35, 36 meter zones, trying to ease the situation and collect all the loose sand that was sliding down to the operational, to the excavational trench. So, but we understood that sooner or later, if we want to have a decent and proper excavation of this site, we had to abstract all this amount of sand that was accumulated above the wreck. By the same time that while we were dealing with all these technical difficulties, a colleague of mine, Dimitra Vourtirea, started studying in detail secondary cargo that we were located in the shipwreck, containing tableware of the Phocian red slipware. During her study, I started to receive emails that we have to look again the chronology, the given chronology of the shipwreck, because there was much evidence that this particular Phocian ware was dated much later than the amphoras that were raised in 2015 indicated. So we managed, although the technical difficulties, to clean the western side of the shipwreck, and from 2022 we made also some raising of extra material, and this enlarged also the species, the types of amphora that were present in the shipwreck. So this is the area that we freed from the sediments, and several new types of amphora started to emerge. I will begin with the Sinopian type C11. It originates from the workshop of Sinope, and we are lucky in that because the workshop of Sinope near the site of Dermitsi have been well studied, and also Dominique Cassab-Desgor, a colleague, has created 15 years ago a full typology of Sinopian amphoras. So this is a type that it's very well documented. So the particular type we have here in the Phournoi, which is found also side by side with the Zist 72 type, as we see here. So the Sinopian amphoras are demonstrated with the purple, the green. You can see the Zist 72 amphoras. All these amphoras were buried in the sediments. You couldn't see it in the press survey that we did. So those amphoras giving us a date somewhere in the 5th or even in the 4th or even 5th century AD. Another interesting type that we discovered, but with a very few samples, so I think we have so far just 3 samples, is the Selov D or Zist 91BD type of amphora. It's this small amphora that our diver Manos Mitikas is holding here, with a capacity not more than 1.5 or 2 liters. So it's one of the smallest amphora ever created for trading liquids. For the origin, it's well documented. It's another amphora from Heracleia Pontica, so it fits well with Zist 104 type, and they share also the same technical characteristics. The date range is from the late 2nd century AD to the early 4th century AD. But here is where the trouble starts. We located in the shipwreck also 2 amphoras that are dated much later than the rest of the cargo. So these are some later variation of the later on 1 type. This is later on 1B form, the form between form 2 and form 3, because later on 1 amphoras it's a very extended family of amphoras, and we have many subcategories of them. So you see that we have raised so far 2 samples, and both those 2 samples seems to be dated, you know, perhaps middle of or second half of the 5th century. And they could also possibly date it in early 6th century. For the origin, we are not sure, because we are at that time later on 1 was produced in many different sites in the Eastern Mediterranean. Perhaps the origin is Aegean, but it might be also from Cyprus, it might be also from Cilicia. There are workshops producing these amphoras all over the Eastern Mediterranean. But I would say that what was the most categorical evidence for dating the shipwreck was the estimation that we had from the study of the Phocian red slip ware. As you see, as we excavated the site, we started collecting many deep plates stacked the one in the other in the stacking order, and they were concreted by marine incrustation staged together. So we found quite a large quantity of them. Voutirea started studying those stamps they have in the inside surface of the plates. That mostly we see Christian crosses. And it's very interesting because the profile of these plates and also those stamps correspond with stamped red Phocian red slip that was found in the Athenian Agora in stratums between the late 5th century and the early 6th century. So this is the full cargo of Shipwreck 15 according to the ratings that we completed till now. And one thing I forgot to tell you is that we raised also another type of Zist 72 amphora. We name it Zist 72 similis because it resembles with the classical Zist 72, but it's yet not the same amphora. But we are confident that these are produced in the same workshops, which might be in the area of Crimea. And I say might be because we analyzed the clay, and we found some volcanic elements in the clay that do not exactly fit with the profile of the clay of that region. So this matter also remains a bit open. So now, if we put everything, on a chart, we see some strange things. We have the Zist 72 amphora, which is dated early. Also, the Zist 72 similis, it's dated very early. We have then the Sinopean type of amphora, which is basically dated in the 5th and the 4th and the 5th century AD, but there is a slight period of coexistence with the Zist 72 production. And the same goes also for this amphora from the Heracleia Pontica, the Zist 104. For the unknown type, we don't know much, but because it's very rare amphora and is not to be found in any amphora classifications or typologies. But from the few samples that have been found so far in terrestrial environments, it seems that it's mostly dated in the second half of the 3rd century, but we don't know if the production goes further. The Capitan 2 is the least problem we have because it has a very extended range. And then the thing is here that we have later on 1B, which is main period of circulation, 5th century, it goes up to the 6th century, and almost the same goes also for the decorated with stamps Phocian red slipware. So how does all this fit together as a cargo of a shipwreck? It is very difficult to combine a single cargo, things that, according to the chronologies given, are dated, almost 2 centuries apart. So there might be there are two things that we have to consider. The first thing we considered is that perhaps all these old, amphoras, that the chronology is based on old excavations like Zist 72 similes, and it goes also for this tiny Zist 91 from Pontica. The chronology might need to be revised. We don't argue, first of all, with the traditional chronologists. We believe the traditional chronologists are accurate. What we argue is that those amphoras might have been circulated and produced and circulated in the markets for much more extended periods than previously thought. But okay, this is the one possibility. There is also a second possibility that we have to consider, that our shipwreck has been contaminated from material from a later shipwreck event. So speaking more clearly, this might mean that the two samples we have from late Roman 1B amphoras and all the cargo of the tableware, the Phocian red slipper, might be due to another shipwreck that sank in the same area 100 or 150 years later. Now, to estimate that, we have to consider the specific place that each finding was found in the shipwreck. So let's start first with late Roman 1 amphora. This is the one sample, and this is the environment it was selected. It was, first of all, we have to say that it was in the western side of the shipwreck, so the area we excavated. And next to the amphoras here, there are typical shapes of Black Sea amphoras, mainly Zist 72 amphoras. So they lie side by side. This is an indication that it is part of the cargo. Now, the second amphora now is much more problematic, because the second late Roman 1 amphora is this amphora here. It was found just 2 meters apart from the main concentration. And I was the one who excavated this area here. And when we started excavating around this amphora, we noticed that there were not other amphoras below the late Roman 1 amphora. It was resting in the 40 or 50 centimeters of pure sand. And this is an indication that this amphora was deposited sometime after, the shipwreck event of shipwreck 15. To make matters worse, in the same area, we have also in the shallow area another shipwreck, which is, in the very shallow waters, and it's not preserved in good condition, but we have recognized the cargo, and it consists of a combination of amphoras of late Roman 1 and the late Roman 2 types. So we know at least late Roman 1 amphora is present also in another shipwreck in the same area. And from that area of the other shipwreck comes this amphora here. Now, this is also a late variation of late Roman 1 amphora, but if you compare the samples, so we have the two samples of the shipwreck 15 and the sample from shipwreck number 2 that is in the shallows, there are some tiny difference in the shape that someone might suggest that, this amphora here is maybe half a century later. Now, about the tableware that we found in the shipwreck. Okay, I'm I'm still confident that it is part of the shipwreck, because if you see the specific place that we raised and removed those plates, it's, you see, in the interstices between the Pontic amphoras. And also, when we removed some amphoras, we found a broken sherds of Phocian red slip also slightly underneath. But on the other hand, I have to accept also that the stacks of this kind of pottery were found also outside the main concentration of the cargo. So in 2023 and 2024, we started making a trench in this part, which is, 8 or 9 meters away from the main concentration of cargo. And these are some small cavities in the rocks, but by removing the sand from those cavities, we found piles of the same type of pottery that you can see here accumulated together. So the spatial distribution of the cargo of amphoras with the spatial distribution of the cargo of Phocian red slip, it's not even. They don't coincide. But again, this doesn't mean necessarily something, because common sense dictates that the cargo of the amphoras was loaded in the ship first, and then the cargo of tableware was a secondary cargo that loaded on the ship in the city of Phocia, Asia Minor. So probably, the tableware was loaded on the ship above the cargo, and if during the shipwreck process something was to fall in the water, it was probably this would be, the stacks of Phocian red slip. Now, I know that we can't, give an easy answer, and to perplex the situation a bit more, this another 2 amphora samples, they are not found yet within the main concentration of the shipwreck. They are found some meters away, but these are also some late amphora samples. They belong to the wider category of summer sister type. And the dates that we give to those amphoras is also, 5th, 6th century AD. But at this point, although they were found in the vicinity of shipwreck 15, we are not sure if they belong to the cargo. But we manifest with a very clear way that we have a composite cargo that combines Sinopean and Heraclean amphora, and also another cargo that the traditional origin says that it comes from area of Crimea, and probably the ship also passed from Phocia, loaded an extra cargo of Phocian red slip, and came to seek in the Phournoi Archipelago. Let me here present the crew of the 2021-2024 missions. More and more students are participating in this project, and we take very serious the responsibility that we are responsible of educating the next generation of underwater archaeologists here in Greece. Now, among other mentions, I have to make a special mention because if you've been long enough in this business, then to a certain point you're going to realize that your team is stripped in the most unexpected way by its personnel. So I have to commemorate the diving instructor and technical director of the research from the beginning to 2019, which was Marcos Garas, a very experienced diver that he perished in 2019. And this is a good chance to commemorate him. Okay. This is the end of the presentation. Excuse me if I talked too long. Underwater archaeology can be can be very fascinating to the public, but on an academic level, it can be also boring sometimes. So thank you very much for attending this lecture.
Congratulations and thank you very much, Dr. Koutsouflakis, for a very vivid, very interesting and informative presentation of such an exciting archaeological site. And we all wish that we will continue and discover all shipwrecks and have more material in hand. I now have the pleasure of inviting Dr. Theodoulou to give the vote of thanks. Dr. Theodoulou is an archaeologist and one of Greece's best divers who is serving at the amphorae of underwater antiquities based in Crete. Dr. Theodoulou, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you very much, Giorgo, for this excellent presentation, which guided us to the depths, but also all over the Black Sea and the Aegean. I think I do not really have many things to say after the presentation, because Giorgos was quite clear, and he managed to, as usually actually, to transfer scientific issues and discussions to a vivid presentation. Yes, underwater archaeology is something, it's a science that collaborate with land archaeology, trying to find answers, but also set inquiries about the past. The topic of the shipwreck carcass, especially the amphora carcass, although it used to be faced as, okay, we found a cargo with these types, then let's just, it's so obvious that this is the date, and this is the origination of the origin of the amphoras. It is in fact not so clear. It's not so simple. So it needs the thorough view of the archaeologist who's able to be at the site, to excavate himself and understand that an amphora, like the late Roman one that Giorgos presented before, is not sitting just on top of the other cargo. It's a couple of meters away, and there is sand, poor sand on which it stands, which means that it sets a doubt about whether it belongs to the cargo or not. This is not that simple, especially in those depths, and you need a very experienced and very, why not, talented archaeologist to be able to do it. Of course, all this cannot be anything else but only a teamwork, because even the better archaeologist can stay 20 minutes in this depth. And the rest of the day, there are other divers diving there, other archaeologists, photographers, technical divers, conservators, and so on, being there and excavating. And always the archaeologists in charge have to understand whatever says and whatever understands from his work, and combine all this kind of data to understand the cargo, the provenance of the cargo, whether we have one or maybe a second contaminated cargo. This is not something easy, and Yorgos and his team makes a great work at Phournoi. It is said in underwater archaeology circles that a shipwreck, it's a time capsule. That can be transferred to a kind of window to the past. I think in Phournoi we have not only a window to the past, but also a room with glass walls from which we can see the past. And it's quite important and unique that a part of surveying and locating more and more ancient shipwrecks that of course give us an idea of the density of the transportation and the trade in the several centuries and the several eras. And sometimes it's easy to understand why that happens or not. I mean, it's easy to understand why we have so many Roman shipwrecks, and it's easy to understand why we have also late Roman shipwrecks at the area of the Aegean, because the establishment of Constantinople in the area. But also it is not only the survey that gives us the big picture, but we need, and this is what George and his team achieves, to go further with the excavation and understand not only the general picture, but also focus on special issues having to do with the chronology, with what was inside the amphoras and was transported there, and what were the relations in between the several areas that are presented in a cargo. And we have always and the example of that George's presented us shows clearly how complex is the conducting of the ancient trade. It's the same as today. I mean, a ship can start from wherever and go on wherever, taking loading cargo from several places, which is under or over needs the investigation to be proved or not, but a provenance of a type of amphora doesn't really mean that the ship went there, it came back. Anyway, these are known thanks to our circles, to the marine archaeologist circles. But the importance of the presentation, I think, is that the scientific work with keeping all the needed data, the interpretation of these data, and the presence of the archaeologists at the site, it's very important. And Yorgos opens a new road to underwater archaeology, especially from his new position at the university, where he has the chance to share his experience and his knowledge with young scientists, his students. So congratulations, Yorgo. Thank you all for your presence here, and
Thank you.
Keep going.
True. Thank you, Dr. Theodoulou. It was very enlightening and a very different aspect and approach to marine archaeology, which is very interesting for us who are outside your circle. And, definitely, it's very, very interesting. Thank you so much. A heartfelt thank you and a big round of applause for our speaker, Dr. Koutsouflakis, for his splendid presentation. If you wish to contact us, make a donation and be on our mailing list. All information is on the screen now, and a copy can be found on chat, which you can download. Help us to help young, promising archaeologists, and so keep classics alive in the UK. Thank you all for attending this evening. Thank you.